And that gives us an ability to have the brainwave frequencies as well as the bioacoustic frequencies that can impact our cells. And so I was working with layering these things and creating these binaural beat sessions to really help bring my consciousness into these subtler states, these non-ordinary states of consciousness, and really deepen into the meditation experience.
Welcome to the Healing Cocoon. I'm Jacoby Gray, soul alignment and success coach and energy healer, which means I can intuit the subtle layers of your energy field to promote ultimate health and well-being. My goal for this podcast is to shed light on the healing journey itself and help you feel more supported as you embark on the process of unpacking your past to consciously create your present and start living the life of your dreams. Through the study of coaching, kinesiology, holographic kinetics, meditation, Reiki, the chakra system, and many other modalities, I've learned how to release the blocks that were holding me back. Now I'd love to help you do the same. By embarking on your own self-healing process, you'll see the world transforming around you in ways you never thought possible. You'll begin to experience more connection, clarity, love, fulfillment, synchronicity, and success than you've ever had before. So welcome to the Ascension. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back to the Healing Cocoon podcast. Today's episode is very special because it marks the launch of my chakra meditations, which are 7 meditations intentionally designed to balance each of your individual chakras. The meditation technique I use is called Yoga Nidra, which guides you into a theta brainwave state to achieve a deep sense of peace and relaxation, as well as the ability to start reprogramming your unconscious mind. To make these meditations even more potent, I've collaborated with the incredible guest and sonic mystic on today's podcast, Asa, who composed the individual soundtracks for the 7 meditations, which are attuned to the frequency of each chakra and incorporate binaural beats to achieve brain coherence and healing. These meditations are potent, and they are probably the most significant piece of healing art I've created to date. And I'm not only very, very proud of them, I am just so excited to set them free in the world to work their magic. You can find a link to the meditations in the show notes, and I would love for you to check them out. But to give you a deeper insight into the artfulness and intentionality that went into their creation, I've invited Asa onto today's show to discuss not only the meditations, but his personal healing journey as well, which is beyond moving and inspiring. And to be honest, I had no idea of the incredible depth of process and consciousness Asa exists within until our chat today. He's a musician, an artist, a technologist, a meditation teacher, a mystic, and a distinguished producer in the field of ambient music, sound medicine, and neuro-acoustics. Combining his passions for music and spiritual evolution, Asa has developed a composition methodology that integrates principles from neuroscience, music theory, and the Western mystery teachings, creating a library of audio products designed to promote healing and evolutionary change. Using sonic mysticism, Asa seeks to transcribe patterns of nature into the melodies and harmonies of music. And his music is so special. You can link to him. There's a link to him in our show notes, so you can go and download and explore Asa's beautiful library of very intentionally created music that is going to heal you, basically. Because after completing hypnosis and NLP training in 2003, Asa began a clinical therapy practice that profoundly informed the way he would think about both music and evolutionary change. And during this time, he noticed key patterns in the process of healing that shaped his philosophy and inspiration for years to come. I truly hope you enjoy the episode today with this very special human, and please share it if you do, because this man's medicine will move you. Welcome, Asa, to the Healing Cocoon podcast. I'm really excited to have you here because we've been collaborating on a project that I was always excited about, but through the process of collaborating and what has actually been created between us has just touched me so deeply, and I'm so excited about what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
thank you for coming on today and being part of the show because I'd love to learn all about you and binaural beats and obviously all your musical background and the healing process that I suppose that journey has taken you on as an artist as well.
Mm, yeah, oh my gosh, I feel the same way about you. I know very little. I listen to some of your podcasts. Most what I know of you is really just your intention and the quality of your transmission through the meditations that we've been creating together. So um, I'm also curious. Maybe you'll let me ask you some questions too.
Oh, the interviewer gets interviewed. I'm here for it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
fantastic.
Well, first of all, though, I like to start back at the beginning of whether it was your first awakening or your healing process or how it was that you stepped into this style of music particularly. Where did it all begin for you?
Yeah, the origin story. Well, I was very blessed early in life with a severe trauma. And I guess that's where it all started because I was looking for ways of healing and transforming my psychology so that I could really just come to terms with life. So when I was really young, I was 2.5 years old. I was in a house fire and it killed my mother and scarred me. It gave me third-degree burns on 37% of my body. So it was quite an intense kind of shamanic death initiatory experience. And it led me to really ask a lot of the deep questions early on in life. What is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of death? Um, and how do we heal from the insanity of the world and the tremendous loss and all of the pain and suffering that all of us have to endure. And granted, I had a portion maybe a little more significant than a lot of people, but uh, it became obvious to me as I was asking these questions that we're all running around kind of confused and suffering on a deep level. So I was I was very blessed to have this experience because it gave me the passion and the fire to really figure out what's going on here. What is this existence about? And with all the uncertainty and insecurity in the world, how can we come into something stable? How can we rest our lives on something solid and permanent and eternal? so
Mm.
so that was my quest. As early as I can remember, I think it was probably around 7 years old, 8 years old, I started to realize, oh, there's something really significantly missing from my life and my from my sense of peace and comfort. And so I was always kind of leaning toward um, whatever could provide some sort of solace and some sense of comfort. I often tell people that because I lost my mother, I went looking for my cosmic mother and seeking her out in the deepest places of the psyche of nature, and trying to find her in that place of eternal fullness and wholeness outside of the smallness of our individual lives. So yeah, that was really what put me onto the path of seeking for alternative methods of healing and self-development.
Wow.
Mm.
I am so touched. I'm actually moved to tears by your story. It's crazy because just to give everybody a little background information, when I decided to create these meditations and I wanted to find a binaural beats artist, I looked online and I found a page representing a whole bunch of them, and I saw your photo. And I looked at it and instantly I was like, oh, that's the person I meant to collaborate with. And I reached out to you. I found you on Instagram, or somehow I found your contact details. And I wrote this heartfelt email just hoping that you would respond and be open to this. And now that I'm hearing your story and understanding your journey and the gravitas of that, I'm just profoundly grateful that our paths have crossed.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's been really rich and nourishing to hear these meditations and to work on them with you, and just the inspiration in the creativity with the music has been wonderful as a result of this collaboration. And yeah, if you hadn't reached out to me, I probably still would have been kind of languishing in this long-standing creative block that I've had since uprooting my life and moving out of state. So I'm very grateful for that.
Wow. So where do we go from here? It's interesting that you are at a place where you can say you refer to your trauma as blessed, as a blessing, which does show a high level of consciousness that you've clearly achieved as you've been seeking on this path. Was music part of that medicine to find the cosmic mother?
Yeah, it absolutely was. Well, so I had been, I guess it was around 13, 14, I had been searching out methods to really work on myself, to really heal and grow, because I knew it was essential that I did something profound to overcome the the trauma that I was carrying around with me, and that led me on a very kind of windy path. I went through lots of different shamanic healing paths and meditation paths, and just really looking for whatever was going to be the most powerful thing. And I mean, that included, different psychotherapeutic modalities and journaling and shadow work and things of this nature. And all of it was helpful to some degree. But as I, was going through my teenage years and trying to really fortify my mind and soul, I was practicing different meditation techniques, and they just weren't happening for me. I was not able to settle down. I wasn't able to concentrate. I probably had undiagnosed learning disabilities and post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was a mess. I was a total mess.
What were the physiological, like how was that presenting? Were you constantly in a fight or flight? Did you experience anxiety?
Yeah,
What was it?
lots of anxiety, lots of just like a deep sense of alienation in the world. I was very bored with, all the things that my friends were interested in. I just was not, I just didn't feel comfortable in my skin in any significant way. And I know that, a lot of teenagers go through similar angst in life. And I could see that it was somewhat universal, but I think I had a strong dose of it. So,
Well, because your trauma happened when you're almost still very unconscious in a way. It,
pre-verbal, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was well and truly locked into your psyche as a
Yes.
way, as the foundation for your personality at that point.
Yes, it really was. And so I picked up some books about trauma and about psychotherapy, and I started learning, what things were being done currently, where the state of the understanding as it is, or as it was at the time, and everything seemed a little bit just partial. Like it didn't have deep resonance for me. And granted, I was very young and probably too stupid to to fully understand everything that I was reading, but I knew that I needed to do something more comprehensive than just try and fix my psyche. I needed a spiritual nourishment. I needed a deep soul level transformation. So I went picking up different meditation techniques, mindfulness and vipassana and things of this nature. And I was like 2.5 years into it or so, and I was about to give up because it was just a maddening experience. And one day I just happened to be at a garage sale in my small little town in Crestline in Southern California. And I was looking through these tape cassettes in a box, and I saw the Monroe Research Institute HemiSync tapes, and they said something on them like, deep meditation and healing and things of this nature. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me see what those do. And I grabbed them for like, I don't know, it was 25 cents each or something like that, not really knowing what they were. And I put them in my Walkman and I started to work with them. And instantly I dropped into the state that I expected I would drop into during meditation. I dropped into a sense of profound rest and stillness and wakefulness. And it was amazing. And I was like, well, how is this working? What is this about?
Yeah, because previously you hadn't been able to touch it, that space.
I couldn't touch that space. So I was really intrigued by this, and I went, looking up what I could learn about it. And so I learned, that there's research being done with acoustic stimulus that can entrain the brain into certain states of consciousness that can be very beneficial for healing and for deep meditation. And I was hooked. I kept working with these programs for several months, and I had what I can only describe as a visionary experience. And at the time, I didn't really have words for it. It was profound. I mean, all of my sense of confusion and uncertainty just fell away in this one moment. Of course, it came back later, as those things always do. But in this one moment, there was a sense of peace and wholeness that just transformed me on a really deep level. And I saw something fundamental about the nature of my own existence and the nature of consciousness itself. I came to believe later. At the time, it was totally over my head. But it was something about the fundamental nature of being having its root and its origin in frequency, in vibration. It took me many, many years to kind of learn and unpack, what it was I was experiencing. But in that,
So you saw this.
I
This was
saw,
you.
I saw it. I felt it. It was beyond a sensory kind of experience, so I can't really say that it was like a vision or something, but I,
It was an experience of oneness with the
it
universe, or
was,
did you leave your body in a way like you transcended? Would you
it
say?
was, it was like there was no sensory experience of my body. All of my thoughts had dropped away, and I entered into a very subtle kind of silent state of consciousness. And I was just in this field of velvety blackness, and it was this absolute emptiness. And so, of course, there's no problems there because
Yeah.
There was no self-consciousness. There was no me
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that place. And I thought, oh, how delightful. So, so in just sitting in that space, I was just kind of looking into whatever you want to call that, the void or that emptiness, that luminous darkness. And I could kind of start to detect this vibrational nature to things. And it now I would describe it as something like, the quantum field. And I was touching into the ground of being and experiencing the creative impulse of the universal mind kind of radiating outward, creating all of the
Existence.
phenomenon, and yes,
All
everything
that
that comes
is.
out of it. Yes. and
Wow.
and, and so it was just very mind-blowing, obviously. Like
Yeah.
it took me, I mean, ever since then to be working out how to unpack what this meant.
And to
But
integrate it.
to integrate it, so it occurred to me, like, maybe there's medicine in this. Maybe there's medicine for me, but also maybe there's medicine for everybody, because it seemed like that all forms, and even, our individual consciousness itself, had a basis in vibrational frequency, as if we're all sort of solidified, or crystallized expressions of this quantum vibrational field.
Mm.
And if we can understand to utilize that frequency in a conscious way, in a skillful way, maybe we can make improvements to our state of being. Maybe we can heal ourselves from illnesses and from traumas, and really just upgrade our experience of ourselves and the world. And so that, I mean, of course, I came out of it, and I forgot, and all my problems came back, and I was a complete nincompoop and totally stressed out again for a
Yeah.
long time. But that memory was still there, and it was
Mm.
always in the back of my mind of like, wait,
There's a
there is a
place.
there's a place you can go where everything is okay and you're free, you know, and and it's a place that we all have access to. And certainly you have to do certain things to discipline yourself, and develop yourself into having more regular access to that level of consciousness. And so, I started searching out other ways of really cultivating that in my life. And that led me, into my spiritual, to my spiritual journey. And, I really examined the teachings of A Course in Miracles, because that was kind of in my
Mm.
orbit with my dad, and the Unity Church that I was a part of. And that kind of blew me away, and lit me up. And then I was looking at, different Vedic texts, and, the Eastern spiritual traditions, and they started inspiring me around this, frequency expression of the
Mm.
cosmos. They have a very rich tradition of mantra practices, and a cosmology that even describes the nature of being, the nature of creation is fundamentally vibrational. And so I'm like, oh, okay, these people are teaching about this, and I should learn what I can learn about that. And so I just was, consuming these books, and practicing, meditation, and working with these programs, and gradually just started putting myself back together in a way that, allowed me to function day to day.
Mm.
And this continued on. I went and trained in Reiki. I started practicing that. I became a hypnotherapist and studied neurolinguistic programming, really just looking at any alternative therapeutic modality that I could apply to myself, and and really kind of adding to my toolkit anything that seemed to be super effective, from Jungian archetypal psychology and things of this nature.
I'm interrupting this awesome chat to quickly tell you all about the free meditation I've created for peace, presence, and empowerment. It kind of sounds like a big promise, but when you break it down, a sense of inner peace comes from being present because you're not feeling anxious about the past or worried about the future. You're simply with this moment here, right now. And empowerment is also a byproduct of presence because what's the one similarity you notice about the people in your life who have the confidence to ask for what they need and want, not in a pushy or narcissistic way, but in a way that feels genuine, clear, and unattached to the outcome of their ask, which ultimately then makes you more receptive to fulfilling their needs and wants. That's true empowerment. And that one similarity that all those people have in common is presence. So, this meditation is designed to give you a repeatable experience of presence so that you can begin integrating those feelings of peace and empowerment into your everyday life. I'd love for you to try it out, ideally 2 to 3 times a week for a month. I know it's a commitment, but you've got this. And let me know what starts shifting for you once you do. So pop onto our website, thehealingcocoon.co, that's C-O, not .com, and download your free audio track right now.
So eventually I felt, like I had really made significant progress in my own journey, in my own healing. And I was wanting to share my insights and share my service to the world. So I became a hypnotherapist and practiced that for some time, and kind of had the memory of the Monroe tapes in the back of my mind and hadn't really been using them for some time. But I had a client who came, and he was a retired hypnotherapist, an older gentleman, and he saw that, I was just starting out in my career. I was probably early 20s at the time. And he was, wrapping his up. And he said, well, I have something that you might be interested in. It's an old hospital bed I converted into a sound table. And, you got to put it back together. And, maybe you can check this out and you might have use for it. And then I have these other weird, mind machines and different, he gave me his shed full of, these trinkets and tools that he had been using in his career to bring people into altered states of consciousness and different, frequency technologies and things of this nature. So I had this equipment and I was like, well, that's interesting because I'm into music. I had been, studying music in band in high school, and I was in a rock band and played drums, and I was in wind ensemble. So it was very, very much up my alley. And I thought, okay, well, what can I do to incorporate this into my practice? And so I reassembled this table and kind of dusted off my information, the resources around the binaural beats, and started practicing on myself again. But this time also with the frequencies being played through the sound table and into my body.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's how it all came together.
That's how it all came together. Like wild, very, very much a synchronistic sort
Very
of.
much meant to be.
Yeah.
What exactly was this sound table? Was it something you laid on, or was it like a DJ table? Like what was it?
Yeah, you lay on it, and so it has 10 subwoofers or bass engines strapped to the bottom of it.
Wow.
And so it's and then there's an amp, and so it just vibrates you through this padded cushion.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, well, you know, studying acoustics and understanding kind of how the physics of harmonics work, I thought, well, okay, if you did like binaural beat frequencies and then you had the same kind of corresponding frequencies but in the range that you could feel in your body, wouldn't that be interesting? Maybe you can have like a whole kind of full body experience with these frequencies.
And did you?
Oh yes, it was phenomenal. So I spent about 3 years kind of tinkering, and I was still seeing clients at the time, but I started to wonder if maybe I could be as helpful to them if I just, you know, put headphones on them and didn't even talk to them, just, you know, gave them these frequencies
Mm.
and see what happens. And they started getting results, and I started making recordings of some of these guided sessions. And I thought, well, you know, maybe I could reach more people if I don't see one on one clients, and maybe I could just do a whole kind of sound medicine thing and do guided sessions and this sort of thing. But I was still very kind of disorganized in my life at the time. I was really young. I
Mm.
still didn't
In your
have,
20s at this stage?
yeah,
Late 20s, mid 20s?
I was in my mid 20s at the time, and
Mm.
I still didn't really understand what was going on and what I was doing, and so I needed to continue to just research and
Grow
experiment.
into that.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
grow into it, and I did. So I spent 3 years in a kind of just siloed in a little hermitage experience where I was putting myself in sessions that were, you know, they lasted sometimes up to 3 hours at a time. And I was examining what were some of the frequencies that would be the most interesting or the most impactful. And so I was drawing on, you know, some of this old um, esoteric knowledge from the Vedic systems and the Western mystery traditions, which are all very heavily laden with these kind of arcane insights around frequency and the correspondence with archetypes and these, you know, higher states of consciousness. And so I went trying to find what are the most special frequencies that could be the most healing, the most impactful. And I came across some synchronistic prompts, I guess you could call
Mm-hmm.
them, to examine a set of 9 frequencies. It turns out to be 81 of them, quite a few.
81.
81, but there were 9 initially, and so I developed these programs for myself with these
With the
initial 9,
nine.
and they transformed my psyche in a way that um, I just, yeah, I couldn't even really put it into words without um, sounding like a crazy person.
But you felt a sense of wholeness or being healed as you went through this process of
Yeah,
refining these frequencies and
yeah,
discovering the nine that were the
yeah,
sweet spot.
yes, yes, and they're ultra profound, and I felt like I had some kind of, you know, download that
Mm.
was just given to my body, to my biology, and I needed to really understand it better and unpack them. But so I made some music, and I just put it out on the internet, and this was, you know, at the very beginning of YouTube, and you know, this was during, you know, Napster and all the P2P stuff, and piracy was huge at the time, and there weren't, you know, WordPress didn't exist, and there weren't like, you know, virtual download
Mm-hmm.
sites where you could monetize these things. So anyway, I put the music out there, my first album out there, and it was well received. It went viral, and it was downloaded like 2 million times and shared through Napster and everything. And I thought, well, okay, maybe that means I have a career here. Maybe I should
Yeah.
keep doing this, and I should figure out how to really understand what's going on, and learn how to improve this offering. And really, that's how it all started. And so I've been, chasing that rabbit ever since.
What a phenomenal story. And I'm always amazed. I feel like some people are born onto the planet knowing instinctively what that journey is. Maybe they have a voice and they're like, I know I'm meant to be a singer that will be touching the world. And other people discover their path unfolds for them. And it's undeniable that this is what you were meant to be doing. Completely
Yeah.
undeniable. But it's something that found you.
Yeah, it found me. I was thrust into it. And I mean, every day I look back at the journey, and I'm just so grateful and in awe of the synchronicities. And it's not a common thing for people to really come into their life path and their service work early on, and with such clarity. I think a lot of people really have to search and follow false paths before they finally discover the thing that they're
Their
here to
dharma.
do. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just blessed with such an intensity of a need and a purpose that it really helped to concentrate my attention, my focus. So, I'm just every day counting my blessings, and so grateful for the the unfolding mysteries of sound and music, and just the awe that's there is something that will just delight me, to the end of my days.
Yeah. And do the nine frequencies that you found, were they specific to you, or would they work across every human brain and have the same result, or do different brains require different frequencies?
Yeah, I think they're universal. They're commonly called the solfeggio frequencies. This is a bit of a misnomer. But they are I guess you could say they are the currents, the electromagnetic currents that correspond with the tube torus. And so the tube torus is, in case anybody hasn't seen the
Yeah, they're
shape,
probably like, what does this mean? You're talking about the Taurus
donut.
field?
The torus, yeah, it's a donut.
Yeah.
It's the donut shape, right? And so we all are made of this tube torus. And if you were to say, what's the shape of consciousness? You could say it's in the shape of a tube torus, centered in the heart. And so there's this electromagnetic field that surrounds us, and it makes up our energy field, our light body, and the quality of that field in terms of its coherence, its relationship to the larger torus field of the Milky Way, which the Milky Way is also a torus, determines just our access to that universal level of awareness, or to the universal mind. So it's an important geometry, and it makes up the frequency patterns that are supporting the quality of consciousness that we're inhabiting. And so these frequencies really help to align that field, that energetic field within us. And so, with these frequencies, they can be played in a way that you can hear them, which tends to be, quite a bit higher than what we would want for binaural beat frequencies, because binaural beat frequencies are quite a bit like lower in terms of their octave. But because of the nature of the harmonic series and the acoustic physics, we can stack these frequencies on top of each other so that they correspond to one another, and that gives us an ability to have the brainwave frequencies as well as the bioacoustic frequencies that can impact our cells. And so I was working with layering these things and creating these binaural beat sessions to really help bring my consciousness into these subtler states, these non-ordinary states of consciousness, and really deepen into the meditation experience. And as over time, it really started to reorganize my psyche, my energetic field, and really put me in touch with something that's just really, really beautiful. So there was a book that came out called The Healing Codes of the Biblical Apocalypse, sometime after I had been experimenting with these frequencies. It was quite synchronistic. And so it really popularized them to the New Age communities. And so then it just, had widespread interest, and people really were gravitating to that.
Oh, you were discovering this kind of right at the beginning of the binaural beats becoming a mainstream thing. So when you
Yeah.
were reading about it in these Vedic texts, it was almost like you were uncovering something from the past that you'd not even heard of before.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting how, when the universal consciousness wants to bring something into the world, it comes in through multiple places simultaneously. It uses all the centers of expression
Awareness
that are available
that it
to
can access.
bringing it
Yeah.
through. And so, yeah, so I got really lucky in the sense that I was really looking for something to work with for myself. I was trying to create my own medicine, and it turned out that it was useful and helpful for other people as well. So yeah, so I just started figuring out what I needed to do in order to get it to more and more people, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so a binaural beat will take someone into, is it the theta brainwave space, and allow them to be in that deep state of consciousness so
Yeah.
that they can start to reprogram. Is it like, what is the actual thing that will happen to their brainwaves when they're in that state that causes the healing?
Yeah. Well, so there's three ordinary states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. And so we live our whole lives generally within these three states of consciousness. Dreaming is associated with theta. And so when we're asleep, we're doing a lot more theta. When we're in deep dreamless sleep, when we're just completely unconscious, we're doing much more delta bands. So delta is very slow, theta is a little bit faster, and then our ordinary waking consciousness is what they call alpha. And then, of course, if you're like super alert or stressed out or in a fight or flight mode, you're doing beta, which is very, very fast. So if we start to train the mind to be able to do theta waves and delta waves while remaining alert, while remaining present with alpha, then we start to enter into what's called non-ordinary states of consciousness. And so with theta, for example, if you're in a theta state and you remain consciously aware of it, you're in a hypnagogic state, or you're in a state of hypnosis, or a state of lucid dreaming. And this is generally associated with things like daydreaming and hypnosis and things of this nature. The mind starts making pictures, and we go into kind of these imaginal realms. So this is a very helpful state of consciousness for healing because it activates the secondary nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. And so we can give ourselves suggestions like to change behaviors. We can touch into unresolved negative emotions that we're holding within the subconscious mind and allow those to come forward and be released through, our intentions of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really useful
So
for
the intention itself is enough to create the healing. Going into this space with the intention of healing is enough.
it's a it's a good start.
Yeah. Okay.
It's enough to get started. It's enough to get started.
Yeah.
When we do have the intention and we really mean it and we really do the practices that are required to kind of get into our inner work, the unconscious mind will surface our unresolved
Yeah.
stuff. It'll present the negative emotions. It'll present the themes,
Mm-hmm.
that are kind of telling the story of our wounds,
Yeah.
and giving us insights into the resources we might want to use to nourish and heal ourselves. So I wouldn't say it's the only thing, but it certainly is, the tiny snowball at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
When you push it down, it will start to collect more and more power and more resources.
Yeah.
So theta is very profound for healing trauma and PTSD, and really just connecting in with the unconscious mind, the unseen dimension of our inner lives,
Mm.
and revealing the deeper layers of the mystery of who we are and what our life journey is. And this can happen through, it's a kind of shamanism in a sense.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is the process that Yoga Nidra also, which is called a yogic sleep. And the idea is it's different to other meditations because you actually get to do it lying down with your headphones in. And I mean, the idea is to try to stay in that space between sleep and wake. But for a long time, when I first started practicing it, I would fall asleep the entire time. It took me a while to be able to reach that space where I could stay
Mhm.
awake. But I had the idea, I thought, well, that's powerful, that technique, which I'm now trained in. And I wanted to create a yoga nidra for each, specific to each chakra and the attributes of each chakra, and really hone in on people's ability to heal those specific things in those spaces. And I
Mm.
thought, what if I could mix that with a binaural beat, or a frequency that was attuned to that chakra with the ability
Mhm.
to take someone into that space as well? And how powerful would that be?
Yeah, such a
So
brilliant idea. Well, and that makes me wonder how did you come to this inspiration? Where did that come from? How did you learn this?
well, Yoga Nidra is something that I was introduced to by my yoga mentor. So I was a bit late in studying yoga, which is kind of crazy because I was a dancer my whole life and I've always been very physical. But I didn't actually come into my yoga teacher training until the age of, I think it was 37, after my divorce kind of propelled me into seeking some deeper levels of healing as well. And I remember doing that and going, why have I not done this before? But my teacher was a yoga nidra teacher as well. And she would have a class once a week where we would do an hour of yoga followed by half an hour of nidra.
Mm.
And for me, it was this profound experience because the whole point of the physical aspect of yoga is to get you into a space where your body is loosened up and the tension is removed enough to be able to sit with the stillness to meditate. So after an hour of moving and loosening and lubricating, then to actually lie down and do a yoga nidra, it was such a profound experience that when she hosted a nidra training, I was like, I have to do this.
Mm.
Through that journey, I was being called into creating my business, which is Urban Ascension. And I can't remember what it was, But one day I was like, oh, I will work with the chakras. And I'd previously studied Reiki when I was 26 and came to it again at 36. And I knew I had energetic gifts. And so the chakra system, it wasn't a surprise, but it was the way it came to me. I was like, oh, I will work with the chakras. And then I went and trained. I did a course with Anna Dea Judith, who is the queen of the chakra system in the Western world, and I always knew that that's what I would be building Urban Ascension on, is working with the chakras, and that's still coming together. And these meditations are the first offering, which is why I was very specific with the about wanting to do a nidra for each chakra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
kind of how this came together. But I was curious, how did you then interpret that creatively when I said, oh, I want to do a yoga nidra attuned to each chakra with the frequency of each chakra and with binaural beats? Like, I'm not sure I even, are they that is the frequency and the binaural beat the same thing, or is it, how did you interpret that and create that?
Yeah, well, without getting too nerdy, it's there's a series of correspondences in the Western mystery tradition. They call it the law of correspondence, and that's to say that there's a set of fundamental principles that govern consciousness, that govern nature, and all things. And through understanding this law of correspondence, we can um, we can gain insights into the different aspects of consciousness, and there's roughly 7 or 10 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they correspond with certain attributes, capacities, or features of our inner life, such as the intellect, and all of these things that are commonly in the Eastern tradition associated with the chakras. So there's a set of colors that are associated with each of those attributes of consciousness. And so that's on the visible light spectrum. There's
Mm-hmm.
wavelengths that are associated with each of those colors. And then it's just a process of translating those wavelengths into the audible range, because they're very fast. The visible light spectrum is very fast, but if you convert it up a certain number of octaves, then you can get to the audible range. And so there are frequency correspondences to each of the chakras. But this is so you can, and then you can pattern the music around those base frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
But this is different than binaural beats, because binaural beats are essentially two individual frequencies played in each ear. And so what happens is, as you know, I'm sure, when the brain hears these two different frequencies, it does a kind of very quick math problem to solve for the contrast. And it creates a third frequency. And so that third frequency then starts to entrain or kind of bring the electrical firing signals of the brain along to that third frequency.
Into coherence.
Yeah, so they come into synchronization. The frequencies of the brain come into synchronization with this third frequency.
Right. And trauma is an unsynchronized brain, essentially.
It does lead to a lot of fragmentation within the brain, and stuck
Right.
energies and all sorts of things that are unpleasant and have a root in the physiology in some way. So then it's a matter of tuning the binaural beat frequencies to correspond with the carrier frequency, or the root tone of the chakra music, which is just a little math to do. But that's
Wow.
the nerdy part. The fun part is actually the inspiration and the creative thing that comes along with it. And when I heard your recordings for the first time, I was very delighted. I mean, I've been approached many times for projects like this and have participated in these things, and they're often quite lovely, and I really appreciate the the sincere intention that people bring to offering service and healing. But I noticed a quality in your offering that was somewhat uncommon in my experience. I could tell that you really put a lot of thought and a lot of intention into every little word. I could feel the experience that you had behind this gift that you were giving. And so I was very lit up by that, and I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, this is exactly the quality of project that I want to be participating in, because of its depth and the purity of the intention that's there. So so that gives the inspirational juice to the sounds that can go on top and the music that can go on top, because it's not just a frequency thing, it's an emotional thing.
Yeah. And you used a lot of like a sitar or a lot of world instruments, I guess. And
Yeah.
that was so cool. I don't know what I was expecting, but when that came, when each meditation is so unique, with such a different instrumental journey, and I was just so thrilled to hear the original samples when I got them. I was like, wow, this is mind-blowing. Literally.
I'm so glad. That's so wonderful. Yeah. I'm really excited for this project and bringing it to the world. I think it's going to be really nourishing for a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for sharing your blessing of a journey.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope this episode has inspired you to keep going on what can sometimes be a tough road to inner peace and true happiness. If you want to dive deeper into what we talked about today, go to thehealingcocoon.co for show notes and all things personal growth. And don't forget, if you're loving The Healing Cocoon, then put that love into action and subscribe, rate and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. And until next time, my friends, let's rise and shine together.